So, you all know, I love The Legend of Korra. It is right up there with my all-time faves. But I know a lot of people just don't like the show. And truly, man, that saddens me. So I wanted to discuss in this video, why do people hate the show so much? It always seems like a blind hate, but behind every hate, there is an in-depth reason. So that's exactly what I wanted to discuss. Are these hates really valid, or are people just hating for no reason? So, without further ado, the Industrial Revolution. Coming from a very traditional Last Airbender, people always complain how Korra introduced us to the Industrial Revolution. Cars, mecha suits, airships, and the whole lot. They say it took away from the true star of the show, which was the bending and the benders themselves. By introducing so much machinery, it ruined the universe. Or so they say. Well, I believe this is not a good point to be upset about. Now hear me out. Yes, Last Airbender was very traditional. No advanced machinery, and the focus was purely on the bending. But was it? No, it really wasn't, because we had a whole episode dedicated to the invention of the airship. In that same episode, we had these tank-looking things, and those are pretty advanced. And even in the final sequence, we had all these massive airships. Yes, they used benders for their weaponry, but the machinery existed. The thing we have to consider is that non-benders existed in the world as well. And benders are limited to just one discipline. After the war, the requirement for people to diversify and work became a reality. And this meant shifting to a means that allowed easier manufacturing of goods and services and easier operation of said tools. Therefore, it is only natural for the invention of things like the automobile to come into play. Even in the Last Airbender comics, we see that there was a huge shift towards making machinery that anybody could use. And then there was, of course, the mecha suits, but that was Hiroshi and his villainous plans. What I'm saying is, Korra is based 70 years after the Last Airbender, and in 70 years, so much changes. I mean, simply look back from 1949, 70 years ago from today. You can't be mad or upset that we have smartphones and portable computers now, because that's just a natural progression. Things and natural technology will progress from where they are. And in Last Airbender, the basic forms of these technologies existed. I guess in a way saying that it took away from the feel of the show is valid, but it is also valid to say that this edition added a lot to the show. And even though this might have taken away from the extraordinary ability of bending, the show explored some pretty extraordinary themes. So I believed it works out in the end. The story. They didn't follow on the story that was built by the Last Airbender. Or so say the haters. Well, I actually kind of agree with this. The biggest point really is that they messed up what the origins of bending were. In beginnings, it is shown that bending was given to the humans by the lion turtles. When the era of the lion turtles was over, they gave the ability to the humans and then left. But in The Last Airbender, they always speak of the sky bisons being the first airbenders.
The original airbenders were the sky bison.
Dragons the first firebenders.
The original firebenders were the dragons.
Badger moles the earth.
For earthbending, the original benders were badger moles.
And Moon the first waterbender.
The legends say the moon was the first waterbender.
This leaves a little bit of a plot hole. How can they pick up bending from the animals when it was given to them by the turtles? Now, people have said that the word bending could mean mastery of the element, and not just being able to manipulate the element. And that is what they learned from the animals, how to master the element. Or it could be said that one story is true and they did pick up bending from the lion turtles, but it's been so many thousands of years that the lion turtle story might have been lost to history. Whatever the reason behind it is, this is still a thing they did not explain in full. So in full honesty, I do agree with this point, that some parts of the story were not fully fleshed out, and they might have overlooked this. Another point people always bring up is how Korra just gains the ability to energy bend and full access to the Avatar state, just by sitting and crying for a little bit. When Aang had to go through so much effort to do so, he had to unlock all his chakras and in the final scenes, learn the wisdom of the lion turtle. Overall, some points in Korra were just not done well and majorly overlooked. So really I can understand the dislike that stems from this reason. But it is not the entirety of the story that's like this. Sure, some points are not written well, but the overall development of the seasons is written well in my opinion. And a few badly written episodes shouldn't take away from the fact the overall show was still well and nicely structured. And a final reason I think people hate The Legend of Korra is because it didn't capture the same enjoyment as The Last Airbender. And to this I have to say, nothing ever will. Every show is its own. Whether it be a prequel, sequel, reboot, it is its own show. Even if a whole new show came out that was really good, even that wouldn't capture the enjoyment of The Last Airbender. Because it simply isn't The Last Airbender. It might get close, but it cannot be the same. Because it is physically not the same. People always bash on Korra, and their reasoning all just leads back to them indirectly saying it's just not The Last Airbender. And this is what I believe is the blind hate. If you dislike the show just because it's not another show, that is blind hate. Because you're not looking past the fact that this is its own creation, you're holding on to something that's finished already. If you dislike the show because of one of the points I mentioned before, or some other reason, then I can fully respect that. But hating it just because it's not something else? Now that's just sad. No show is ever going to be The Last Airbender, except The Last Airbender itself. So we cannot hold new shows like Korra, or anything else to that same standard. Yes, we can compare, relate, critique, but we cannot simply bash one down because it is different to the other. Overall, I do believe some reasons that people dislike this show are reasonable, and I respect that. And I respect that people can voice their problems with the show and explain their dislikes properly. But we always have the other hand that hates the show just because it is not their old beloved. Anyways, that is going to be the video for today. A little bit of a longer one on a show I haven't discussed in a while. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know down below your thoughts on this topic and tell me what other videos I should make. But with that, my name is Rohan. Subscribe for everything The Legend of Korra, and until next time.
Feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my